to be with everyone this morning. My name is Shelly and I chair the subcommittee that helps put this on. So you'll learn more about all the great folks who helped put this together, but we're just going to go ahead and get started. 2 really quick announcements. Do we have any mentors in the room? If you're a mentor, stand up. We want to just acknowledge, recognize these are the people who you will be meeting with if you're a mentor, finding and connecting with your mentees. So that's great. And the last announcement I want to make is we do have our Facebook page to follow the next 2 days. Just search for 2016 CFC training. So I'm going to turn it over. Marcus, are you ready to jump up? All right.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning!
Really quickly, I want to explain our purpose here this morning. This session is going to be very informal. There is not a PowerPoint presentation. This is our one chance to talk about 2016 before we proceed later in the day and tomorrow talking about the future, 2017 and beyond. I was just discussing with some representatives from, a few campaigns, and I've mentioned to them that to a certain extent, we, OPM, and some of the other federal agencies that work closely with us are doing everything we can to make 2017 seamless. And I think you'll find tomorrow that while not all of your questions will be answered, there has been a lot of progress made. And I think you will find you will be impressed with the work that has been done and the organizations that are doing that work. But for now, we need to focus just for an hour and a half on 2016. Most of you are familiar with the way the CFC works, and to a certain extent, because we're working on 2017, we are going to be leaning on your expertise and knowledge to make 2016 happen just as the years before. With that in mind, this session will be nothing more than an informal question and answer. I am prepared to go and show you the charity registry. I can pull up applications. I can show you whatever you need because I know that there are some burning questions out there. So I'll start with one that I know is kind of been on people's minds lately. The email that was sent out saying that that the charity registry is now open and you can start putting your application information into it had a date of June 3rd, 2016. That was the deadline by which you had to have all information entered into the system. Post appeals, eligibility decisions, everything had to be in on that date so that we could close it on that date. And this was apparently misunderstood by some to mean, the April 29th deadline is not a thing, when really that wasn't the case. There was also a mention in that email to go to the calendar of events, which I will try to pull up. And the calendar of events pretty much gives you the details of what to do when. So I'm going to go to cfc.opm.
Marcus, you
Yes.
said no PowerPoint?
This is not PowerPoint.
This is actually, this is live web, this is not presented in a PowerPoint program. These are just audio.
So this is what's called the internet. This isn't. You'll see it here shortly. So I'll show you what the calendar of events is, and then I'm gonna share with you some of the alterations that we've made to this calendar of events to accommodate the information that has been sent out. Do I have?
You're on an extended mode. It's on extended.
Oh, gotcha. So, This is the calendar of events as it stands currently. And you will note that the April 29th date is the deadline for the LSCC to notify the organizations. That's also the deadline to have everything in the charity registry entered. For the last couple of years, this deadline has been there to give organizations, or to give PCFOs, a guide as to what was needed when, so that we could lead up to the universal giving list. Because of the confusion of the email that was sent recently, we're going to drop these deadlines and stick with June 10th, which is the one that's down below. June 10th is the deadline for you to have everything entered. Everything entered into the charity registry from your application, so all the data entry is done. Your appeals should be back by that point in time, and those decisions should be made and entered into the system. So we should conceivably be able to close the charity registry the day after and move on toward producing your universal giving list in a perfect world. So I just want to clarify, I know that there was some confusion on the date. We're going to go ahead and remove the dates up until June 10th. And now, if it doesn't have anything to do with the charity registry, that's not my date to move. I'm not touching it. I'm just talking about the April 29th date, and that's the only one that's changing. Everything else, just aim for June 10th, and you should be good to go from a charity registry standpoint. So that being said, what are your questions with regard to the charity registry and any data entry problems related thereto? I know there are several. Yes, ma'am. Valerie.
What about when we go to enter one and the EIN doesn't come up and it says can't validate? But how do we make that known in the system? Do we still put them in even though it's telling us it's not validating it?
Yes. So you should, in the charity registry, you should enter something for every application you receive. If you receive an application from a participating organization, you just update their record. If you receive an application for someone who's not in your charity registry, and there are campaigns that are out there, they're doing it correctly. They enter everything in, new charity, new EIN, new name, they've been denied, all this stuff. They put everything in, even in cases where they've been denied. That is so that we have a record of their application. So if anybody ever comes back and says, well, I sent you my application and nothing happened. Nope, we have the record right here. You entered it on this date, you're covered. You're good. Yes, ma'am.
Marcus?
I'm sorry. Right, so...
I want people to use the mic because we're
Oh,
recording.
yes, thank you. So, bit of housekeeping. If you have a question, please use the mic. I can hear you, but you'll be recorded for posterity if you step up to a mic. The issue about, if I'm understanding correctly, we got to make sure we document denials properly. So there are a couple of holes you can step in on this point. Especially in the cases of denials, you want to document everything. You want to send your letter, and your letter also has to document where in the regulations their application ran afoul. Why is it that they were denied? That is because on appeal, that is what they have to correct. And then when it gets up to our level at OPM, when the director reviews it, they have to have this paper trail of what they were told, what regulations they were not following, what documentation they did not provide, so that the director can make a decision. So, right, okay, I'm sorry, I thought I said that point. Even if they are denied, you have to enter them in the charity registry, okay? If they're a denied charity that's been in your charity registry, yes, you'll mark it denied. If you have a new application, okay, let's say you're a campaign that received a new application, you're sitting on their application because they're denied. There may appear to you not to be a reason to enter it into the system. That is not correct. A new application has to be entered into the system even if it is denied, and that is ultimately to create a record of their application and to cover you in the case that that organization challenges you in the future. We keep all those records. We'd be able to say, nope, we know they applied to you. We know that they marked you denied. You have a record of the letter that was sent to them. It's totally to protect you. So, what's another question? Yes, ma'am. Please use the mic. I'm sorry.
So when you fill in the charity registry, you have to put the EIN number in first. And if it's not validated, how do we put that registry into the system without it? When you put the EIN number in, it bounces back and says unvalidated. How do we put that into your system to keep it a record of it? I believe that's the question.
Yes, you are correct, and I did gloss over that. I believe that's it. That's not it. Okay, so while it's this is the charity registry. So to answer the question while I pull this up, if the EIN is not showing up, it's because it's not on the business master file. It's that simple. Now, there may have been an update to the business master file since that time, and that information should be included in the application. If that's the case, then you simply send us that documentation. Maybe it's a affirmation letter that's dated after the 1st of January. Or in the case of an organization that has recently, as in a few years past, had its status revoked by the IRS, if they have a letter stating, no, it's been reinstated, and that is dated after the date that their revocation took place, if you have that documentation, you send it to us, and we can override all the codes, and we can code it using other verification processes. But the simple answer to the question is, if the EIN is not there, then they're not on the business master file. Right. So now, there are other cases where these all fall in the same other documentation categories. They could be a part of a church, which is technically a group exemption, and you send the documentation in, and we would override all that and give them other verification status. They could be part of a group exemption and that the IRS isn't necessarily tracking. This happens from time to time where the IRS will take care of the parent organizations, but doesn't necessarily track, because they move around a lot, all the EINs that fall under that group exemption. That could be the case. In those cases, they're often found in GuideStar, or we'll also use the IRS determination letter of the parent along with the parent organization verification documents that were sent in their application. Generally speaking, if you have any problems, all the information should be in the application in attachment B. Any other questions? Did you have a question?
Lauren Marcus, camera. I'm wondering what the turnaround time is if we've entered charities as new, one because they requested it because of mergers within their organization, and then another one is new and it falls in the Catholic process. The turnaround time for knowing when you've had a chance to review all of the additional documentation, how do we know what else you might need, so that way they can be assigned their numbers because they've been approved by the LFCC?
Right. Okay. So the key word sounded like turnaround time, which is scary. We have a couple of folders in our joint email boxes that are chock full of documentation, because you're all doing the right thing. You're sending us the documentation, and we're not looking at it. We're standing in Baltimore. So what I would say is, let us clamp down on those a little bit over the next week, possibly two, to get through those, and then we'll reassess where we're at. As many of you know, as many of you are aware, you may get a request for documentation that you've already sent, and that's solely because I'm looking at a list, I haven't gotten to your email where you sent it, I'm like, oh, this one needs this information, could you please send? Now I'll make every effort to see if maybe you've already sent it. Please bear with us. Yes, I probably didn't look for your email, but it would be faster for you if you just resent it. And then when I stumble upon it later, I'll feel dumb and I'll deal with it. but at least you've been able to move on with getting your list put together. So the timeline for those is, if you've sent it already, give us a couple of weeks to sift through all of them. As a point of reference, when I last looked, there were about 600 new charities waiting to be reviewed. That was after the 300 that we did in late March. So early April. So we're getting to it. Give us a couple of weeks. And then you had another question about Catholic organizations?
Oh, yeah, they're both,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
So while you're coming up here.
Both of them are entered in the new charity category, and one of them is the Catholic Charities. They've been approved, they provided the documentation, and then we've been able to clarify the right official charity directory, and so sending that in. So both of them, I was just kind of wondering the turnaround time frame. I know this last week leading up to today was, no.
Okay.
But just kind of, so I know what feedback to give them and my LSCC members as part of our process.
Okay, got it.
That's
So-
the only thing holding up in the appeals, that's the only thing holding up our registry, otherwise everything else is.
Okay, I'm sorry. So it wasn't a separate question. It's basically the same thing even for Catholic organizations. If you've sent the documentation already, give us a couple of weeks. If you know you need to send us the documentation, go ahead and send it. Otherwise, 2 weeks from now, hopefully, I'll be reaching out saying, hey, you've got these charities with issues. This is what we need from them. Amy?
Hi. Couple questions. So deadline is June 10th to have everything in.
Yes, ma'am.
So between now and then, we should make sure to, can we request a draft semi-final list to OPM so that I can see everything I've entered? And then it's an Excel sheet, and then I can take a look and see if there's any misspellings or any issues, send it out to my charities, have them sign off.
Sure.
That's that time. Now, by June 10th, I can make all those changes. So I guess what is the email request on that? I know we don't want to bombard you now, but like say May 10th, we can start requesting those semi-draft lists?
That would be safe. I mean, you can always make the request. It'll just get archived until we get to it. Now, this year, you'll note we sent instructions for you to, I dubbed it the Field Expedient L3 report, where you can basically get all the information that's on the L3 report and download it yourself. And you don't need to go through us to do it. All the information that you need for these reports is in the charity registry. So you can effectively go in and create your own L3 report from the data that's already been given to you in the charity registry.
My Excel's so old, it won't do it.
Really? Okay.
Okay, so that's what-
beyond that, for those of you that are capable of doing it, you can create your own report. You don't have to go through us. You can make it right then and there.
Is that the report that shows the 25-word statement, the contacts? I want to see the whole.
Right. So that list is the
Elves.
L4 report. It's essentially the
It's your final.
Oh, but it's also in the L3. So if you cannot download your own L3 report, you can always make a request. You don't have to wait till May 10. But you send your request, and unfortunately we'll get to it when we get to it. But we will send you an L3 report anytime you request it. Please note, they sometimes take a while to pull. But once we get the L3 report, we'll send it to you. Another caveat, they look a little different. We upgraded our Crystal report system this year, so the reports we're sending you aren't going to be, they don't look exactly like they have in the past, but all the same information is there. Does that help?
Mm-hmm. And then second, okay, so you have everything in, you updated everything, but we did PCFOs by June 10th, and it shuts down June 11th. But then the question is, like, I have contact changes that come, or phone number changes, so we will not have access back into the registry between June 11th and the rest of the year, or if that's the case, there is no way for us to get in. When the charities give us changes, should it just go directly to OPM or through the
Yes.
the PCFO?
Yes, any changes that you have after the system's been closed, you can send directly to your regional representative. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, okay, so this is a very important point, but it is ever so slightly divorced from actual list information. So the stuff that gets printed in the list, you send your representative an email saying, hey, the system's closed, I can't get in to change this organization's phone number. They moved, whatever. But at the same time, charities need to be using their distribution forms that we send out. These are the now, granted, many PCFOs may not, unless you also happen to deal with being a CFC participating charity, you may not know that we do this. We send out these fillable forms to every single charity in the campaign. And we ask them stuff like, where do you want your check to be sent? We give them the option, do you want EFT or do you want a paper check? You know, we ask for all the information that they need to supply the campaigns and the PCFOs to get their money sent to them. You'd be surprised the number of organizations that don't want to tell us where to send their money. And we hound on them. We need this information so that we can get it to the PCFOs so they can make their payments. I think we've noticed that was a little late in coming this year, and it's precisely because organizations, to Mary's point, organizations need to send this information to us, or they don't get paid. It's that simple. I'm preaching to the choir here, but you know, to spread the word, when OPM sends this distribution form out to the charities, they need to turn it around post haste so that we can get their money to them in the long run. Yes, Robert.
Good morning, Marcus.
Good morning.
So let's clarify a point that you just made. You're looking at your Excel spreadsheet and it says you need this documentation. You haven't checked this email list over here that has this documentation, and so you're going to ask for it again. Do you really want it sent again? If you come back and ask us for this documentation that we've already sent that you
Yes.
haven't seen, you want us to
Yes.
reply? Okay.
Yes. We'll always clean up what we've been sent in the long run. But basically what I'm getting at there is you've sent something, a lot of you have done this, you've sent something and it's sitting there waiting to be reviewed. In the meantime, I'm looking at some other document, sifting through charities, saying, hey, I need the documentations for this one. Well, let me go see if I have that in an email. Some of you are probably really good at this. I'm not. I'm terrible at saying, I need a piece of information out of my email. I could search for it. What am I searching for? Who sent it? I don't know who sent that documentation if it was sent. I don't know which email address they sent it from. The EIN is here. Is the EIN included in the, probably not. It probably got scrubbed by somebody. So what am I looking for? You know what? It's just faster for me to ask you, hey you, could you please send this? And now I'll be looking for it and now I can code this charity. And then I'll come to what you sent later and I'll be like, already took care of that. Get rid of it.
Okay.
So yes, we really do want, if we ask for it, it's because we don't know that you sent it.
Right. Okay. And because there's an open mic, Sarah and Gwen, I'm your mentor. Come hook up with me after this.
Do you think this is your speed dating process? Look at all the opportunities.
That's funny. I'm sorry. I can't do this. This is. Yes, ma'am.
You brought up a thought. You know how on the charity registry part, as you scroll down, there's the note box?
Yes.
So would it be helpful if we responded to an email, or maybe we haven't seen the email yet, but we've noticed in your note box that you've made a request for something, and we date that we've sent you the email? Would that help you in searching your emails?
It would. Yes. Good point. So if you put in the comments that you sent something, and if you give the date, you can even say what email address it came from. Oh yeah, that even goes to Robert's question as to, do you really want it sent again?
We work together.
That's awesome. That's brain trust in Washington up there. Awesome. Yeah, please do that. Please do that. Yes, ma'am.
Just a suggestion that if you maybe have a format that you want the subject of the emails to be, that could be CFC campaign blank and the name of the charity, and they put that in the subject, you'd be able to find it in your emails really quickly.
So, yeah, it's probably a little late to do that. Now, what will always help, always, anywhere in the subject, put your 4-digit campaign ID. Anywhere. I can search for that. And I don't even necessarily need a full drawn out, although they're helpful, a full format of your subject line isn't even necessary for my purposes. If you put your 4-digit campaign somewhere in your subject line, I can find it. Now, it's an excellent idea. There was a time when we did that, and it got to the point where we started asking for those formats, and they just stopped coming. I guess people thought it was no longer important. We didn't mean it. It wasn't helpful. They forgot. I don't know. So to a certain extent, a lot of the emails just don't abide by that format anymore, which is why I've stopped using it. But it would be helpful to include your 4-digit code, your campaign's 4-digit code, in any correspondence that you send us, because then we can route it and we can also find the emails a lot easier. It's a good point. Any other questions? Awesome. Okay, so now I can see. So we were looking at how to get to the charity registry, and I believe most of you should be familiar with this site. This is where I'm going to find out how I was messing up that URL. Yeah, but the charity registry is located on an internal server. Okay, so that was wrong. So everybody's familiar with this basic login process, correct? Okay. So some representatives down front have been ever so gracious. I'm not going to change any information, but I will be able to show you one such charity registry. Now, don't need that. This is one that we often get requests saying, "Hey, our PCFO has changed and it's now a new person. Could you please update the information?" No, we won't update your information. It's your information. We don't want to get accused of messing it up. So to protect you, we allow you to update your information, and this is exactly where this would happen. You can identify your PIN and all that kind of good stuff, and your primary contact information for PCFOs right there, and for LFC. Oh, okay, so this is perfect. So did you notice that? I have this information here. I want to click Save and Continue and move on. It didn't work, right? It went right back. I've received so many emails from people who are justifiably ticked off that this just doesn't work. What am I supposed to do? Okay. This is actually a quick fix. Our system is really old, which is why we are changing it, and you'll learn more about that later on today and tomorrow. But in the meantime, for 2016, our system is really old. And internet browsers have advanced, and they've gotten faster and quicker, and their protocols are different, and everything's kind of whiz-bang awesome, and our system's kind of old. You have to tell this really, really cool, up-to-date IE11 web browser to treat our website gently. And this is how you do that. If you don't see your menu bar up top, right-click, show the menu bar, then go to Tools. You're going to go to Compatibility View Settings. And in Compatibility View Settings, it will automatically populate with opm.gov. That's because this is the domain at which this site rests, and you're going to add it and close. You just told your web browser, hey, this is a silly old site. Treat it gently, and it's like, okay, got it. And it will refresh your page. Now when I come down here and say save and continue to LFCC, it spins its wheel and it updates. This is not the only place where you will run into issues. The issues that you run into could be different. depending on where you are. So some people, it happens in the campaign locator. Some people, it'll happen in the charity registry. Okay, it's generally not predictable, but if you run into navigation issues while at any opm.gov CFC, opm.gov site, this compatibility view settings should fix the problem in every case. If you need those instructions, simply send an email to anyone at opm.gov in the CFC office and say, I need the compatibility view settings, and we will send it to you. It's gotten to the point where we have standard verbiage. I'll even tell you how to take care of it. If you've got a brand new Windows 10 machine that's running Microsoft Edge, we can help you with all that. So if you have any navigation issues that you cannot correct yourself, just ask for these instructions and we'll send them to you. Anyway, we move on to this. This also needs to be up to date, and you need to update it, okay? Because this is your official information, and we don't want just anyone updating your contact information. We want you to do it so that we know it's correct. So please don't write us saying, hey, my LCC chair changed, can you update their information? No, you can. It's so easy, it's right there. So there's that. Okay, so that was just kind of a sidebar. Now there's two tabs that you have to worry about. Most of you know this in the charity registry. There is the charity registration, and that is to register a new charity. And then there are the local charities, and that is the list of all the organizations that are already coded in your charity registry. So here are some new ones, and what I believe what Valerie was talking about before. Let's add a new charity here, and their EIN is going to be 567. And notice I did not enter their name. Stay away from the name. The name will get you in trouble. The one thing you need to do is enter the EIN first, because the system will tell you what their name is, except not in this case. I totally made up an EIN that doesn't exist. Now, this is what campaigns are doing, and it is correct to do it this way. This charity is not in the business master file, which is why it's telling you the charity is not in the IRS file. So what do? The first inclination maybe is simply send them a denial letter and leave them be. You're done, right? No. It goes back to what the good point that Mary was making. We need the record of the application. This is when you would go in and say, enter in their legal name as they provide it to you, and fill out the rest of the form. You'll come back, you'll see it later, I'll give it an A code, which means, hey, it's not in the business master file, and then you leave it. It will live right there. We will archive it, and we will have the record that covers you if you should ever be challenged by this organization saying, well, I applied to you, and you denied me, and you shouldn't have, and all this kind of, no, we should have. You're not in the business master file at the time that you apply, okay? So that's one example of how to deal with those. You'll notice that in this case so the other question that I've heard recently is, well, we need to get these letters out and we need to give them their 5-digit codes, but you haven't issued their 5-digit codes yet. You're right. We've gotten a little behind and you want to send these letters out. I'm perfectly okay with you sending the letter to them. Based right here, you see that string of Ys. That's the column that says that they're IRS master file validated. If you want to use that documentation, your LFCC can say, okay, this is the documentation that we're using to verify that they are in fact validated. You've got all the other information that you need in the application. You should be applying that to this. Don't just go off this Y. You can't, your LFCC can't look at this and say, oh, good, approved. No, they got to look at the rest of the application. But assuming that they've done their due diligence, there's a Y right there. If they're approved, send the approval letter stating that you will send them their 5-digit code at a later date when it has been assigned. When you do get the 5-digit code, send it to them, and in your record, simply attach that email to this letter and you're covered. You're good. You've sent all the documentation that we require, and you've done it by the deadline. Now, there have been some concerns. There may be some examples where it says it's business master file validated, but there's something else wrong. If that's the case, it's going to be in their application, and you're going to find it, and the LFCC will issue the denial in that case, or will request more information. So don't let the fact that they're still sitting in the new, because there's like 600 of these, like I said, don't let the fact that they're sitting here prevent you from notifying the charity of their status. You should be able to tell them, we'll get you the 5-digit code once OPM figures it out, and then you'll just update your documentation after that. So I know that was a question that came up that somebody hit me with yesterday. What are any other questions concerning new charities and how they're entered? Yes, sir. Can you talk at the mic? Because I'm sorry, I don't want Shelly to yell at me. Yes, sir, John Smith. Jacksonville, Florida.
Service sites. Some charities are not chapters and affiliates or under group, and they may be a national, and then they have service sites in our regions. So they apply as service sites. When you read them, you see them as maybe this is a chapter or affiliate. So you make the comment or you put the D, I think it's the D code. And so if we answer back in the comment section, we've only got 600 to look through, but anyway, so we tell you that it's a service site, and service sites are authorized. Do you want a specific email to address? Like I've got 3 of them sitting in your 600.
Okay, so in the case of service sites, we're talking about new charities right now.
Right.
Okay, there is no place to enter the service location.
Right.
So it wouldn't matter to the system if they have a service site or not. And for the new charity validation side, it doesn't matter if the address that's given is outside your area. That's why we have the service address later.
Right.
So their service address shouldn't matter for new charities. You would enter the address that is associated with the EIN of that organization.
Correct, and
Okay.
that was done.
Okay, so you've done that, and now you...
And you're asking me if this looks like it may be a chapter or an affiliate. And so I'm responding in the comment section, this is not a, they don't use chapters and affiliates. These are service sites. When you look at it, because it's the headquarters charity,
Okay.
and they have all their service sites. The one I'm really talking about is Clark School for the Deaf.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
when I go back to you, I say, no, this is a service site. And I do it in the comments.
So the address on the record, this is a different charity, but the address on the record for a new charity is going to be the address associated with the EIN.
Correct.
So the physical address that's entered here doesn't leave room
Correct.
for a service address.
Should we enter the service address in the comment section?
You can, but it doesn't help the system to code the charity. So what's going to happen is the system is going to see the EIN, and in this case, it's going to say this EIN exists as a national organization. That means one of 2 things. Either the national organization is applying to you locally, or a chapter or affiliate of the national organization is applying to you locally. In which case, it sounds like this is what's happened. You send us the documentation saying that they are chapters or affiliates. You're saying they're not claiming to be chapters or affiliates.
Right.
Okay, so we ran into this problem last year with a fairly big, well-known organization that said we don't use chapters or affiliates. Well, then by what mechanism in the CFC are you using the EIN in multiple locations.
Right.
You can't. There's only 3 ways to apply: separate entity, group exemption, chapters and affiliates. Group exemptions, all the organizations have their own EINs, so it's not that.
Right.
And in the case of a separate entity, well, they can't be a separate entity because their EIN is located somewhere else, or even at the national level. So this is an organization that had to have certified that it's a chapter or affiliate, I assume. Certification number 3 would be the last check mark. I've seen this. I don't know this particular application, but it sounds like you're describing the case where a charity certifies that it's a chapter or affiliate, and then in its documentation says, we don't use chapters or affiliates. That's a denial.
Right. Well, they know it's a service site, and they apply it as a service site. Now, here's another issue for you, CHC. They have consolidated, and so the chapter that was in Jacksonville, Florida has its code, but it's no longer a chapter.
Right.
Because the chapter for the state of Florida is in Tampa. So they apply. This is a service site. The validation is for the Tampa chapter, and then their service site is, one of their service sites is in Jackson.
Is there any reason why Florida would be any different than anywhere else in the country? She says you're talking about a charity of theirs. Are you talking about the actual federation application?
No, this is a charity. Let's say it's
Okay.
American Foot Problem, okay?
Okay.
So that's an example.
Yeah, I get it.
So they used to have a lot more charities or chapters than they have today. Okay, they consolidated down, they combined them all, and so they have these service sites, and our CFC region has one of them, and they want to be in our book as the Jacksonville Foot Doctor, okay? And they've previously been in before, but they were in as a chapter. Now they're not a chapter. Now they've reverted to a service site.
Okay, but I'm caught up on, so certification item number 3 does not give service site as an option. If you're a chapter or affiliate, then, I'm not talking to you, I know you're reading the applications. For those preparing the applications, if you're a chapter or affiliate, you're sending a letter along that says, here are all of our chapters and affiliates. If they're not providing that, then they falsely certified.
No, they're providing that. Tampa is the address, is the certified part of American Foot, okay? But they have a service site up in Jacksonville, and they probably have one over in Miami. So if they want to, they're no longer chapters, they're service sites. And we allow service site addresses. They're operating, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. They meet all the site criteria. And they put the address under statement 1, this is our service.
Right. Okay. Sorry. Then yes, just send us the attachment B, and we'll figure it out. Okay. That sounds. Okay. So it's
Okay, service off.
okay. Yeah. A bit of terminology. Maybe that's where we got caught up. We do allow service addresses to account for an organization's local presence in your campaign. Part of that, they can't just have an office. It's got to meet the definition, according to the regulation, of substantial local presence. It's open for 15 hours. It has a phone number. And they provide services. This is the big one. I think we were talking about a charity that didn't provide services last night. I can't imagine, but apparently they're applying. So what you do is you send attachment B. Now, I would imagine that this is an organization that is applying as a separate entity. If they don't have chapters or affiliates, they should have certified that they're chapters or affiliates. If it's a separate entity with a service location in another area, then that wouldn't be caught by the system either. It would simply be coded with an already assigned code. So the campaign in Tampa has already given a code to American Foot Problems in Tampa. when you enter it into the system with the Tampa address, I go through and I say, yes, this already exists. Don't give them a new code, give them the code that already exists in Tampa. That case, and maybe this is where I got caught up, I don't see that being a case where I would ask you for any further information. I would simply see this charity already exists, give them the 5-digit code that already exists, and they'll move on. But please don't refer to them as chapters or affiliates, because that'll confuse me. And if they're not chapters or affiliates, then they shouldn't be certified as such. No? Is anyone else confused? Did I thoroughly derail this train? Which is why we have, an hour and a half for this. Anyone thoroughly lost? Okay, then we'll get offline. Yes, Ron?
Marcus, for the interest of everybody in the room, I know you and I have had a little bit of a discussion, but just for the open conversation of it, would you mind addressing the issues? It's kind of on the same line, specifically how a lot of merges recently and upcoming is going to start causing the charities to claim the service offices. However, we're starting to see some of those service offices are starting to be claimed as residentials, and which are, for the interest of the LCC application review screenings, are going to be more challenging in evaluating. And we understand a residential business is authorized, but there are very clear drive-bys that will show you, no, it's not there. But just for the interest of everybody in the room, if you mind addressing that.
Yeah, certainly. So the information that the application requests is public information, and in fact, it is intended to allow the general public to locate a charity and inspect their records. That is precisely why it exists. Now, I'm not saying that members of the LFCC should somehow be obligated to go out to every single one of these charities to make sure that their addresses exist. To the extent that there are people out there doing that, you're perfectly allowed to do so. It's public information, and you're doing what you deem to be your due diligence. You want to go out there and see, is this charity actually open 15 hours a week during the hours that are on this application? If you want to do that, fine. Furthermore, if a member of the LFCC, because the regulation says, to the satisfaction of the LFCC, do they have a substantial local presence? And if it's found that you drove up to the address that's given on the application, and some dude in his underwear answered the door and said, what do you want? And you said, is this XYZ charity? And they're like, oh yeah, whatever. The LFCC it's to the satisfaction of the LFCC. If they don't like that, they issue the denial. Yes, ma'am. And you should, yes, thank you. And you should document as such in the denial letter so that when it gets up to us, we're like, guy in his underwear, huh? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there aren't a whole, I don't see all the LFCCs running out there and checking up on 20,000 charities, but to the extent that there are people that are looking to that degree and putting that much effort into it, you can use that information to the satisfaction of the LFCC and document it as such. Yes, sir.
Okay, as a follow-on to that,
Okay.
we have a particular charity in our region that we have rejected at least twice. We're really familiar with this charity. We're really familiar with who it is that runs it, what she does, everything. And we've rejected it. You have overridden us and let her in both times. Last year she didn't bother applying. This year she's applied again. We've rejected her again. They're going to get, I'm sure, an appeal from her. Listening to you just now, you said, to the extent that the LFCC is confident. Okay, we've shown repeatedly that we're not, yet we don't get an explanation either when OPM goes, no, you're good.
Right.
You're in. And we just swallow it, even though it raises our bile to about here. So following up on your comments, obviously the LFCC's discomfort with a charity is not sufficient in the cases where you'll override it.
This is a good point, and I'm not disagreeing with you. In fact, it may be helpful to know that raised levels of bile are mutually shared, especially in cases such as these. The flip side to this, though, is the LFCC has the right to make its decision to the extent the regulations allow them to, and they have, it is to the satisfaction of the LFCC. Generally, when things like this are overturned, it's because maybe there was some procedural issue, or maybe to the extent that we can see in the materials that were provided, the organization actually did meet the criteria. I think Mary has something to say.
Yeah, and that's where I wanted to clear, what I was saying to Mark is make sure in the denial letter you state that. If you only state the regulatory section and you don't state that reason, we went by or some sort of knowledge that we can see that you did that. All we've got is a letter saying you're not, that we've got their thing saying, yes, we are, and this is what we have. And we don't have that extra knowledge there of the reason that you're saying. So we need that in the denial letter. We need that in the documentation. The other thing, and I've said before, is be really careful which section of the reg you cite. Because I've had to overturn denials numerous times because the wrong section was cited in the denial letter. I knew it was the wrong section. I knew what the LFCC was trying to say. But because the wrong section was listed in the denial letter, I had to go by what was in the denial letter. And then I had to overturn it, even though I didn't want to overturn it because I knew the reason. But that's when it becomes, like Mark was saying, procedural. If you're not citing the right section of the regs, I can only go by what section of the regs is cited as the reason for denial when I'm looking at appeal.
So Mary brings up a good point that it's possible that there are people in the room that don't fully know the appeal process, or at least the documentation. When an appeal comes to OPM, there are only a handful of documents. There's the original denial letter. There's the appeal back to the LFCC. There's the LFCC's decision, and then there's the denial to us. We generally, because the documentation comes from the charity, we don't always get the full application. It can be requested, but again, this goes back to Mary's point. If we see the documentation that's there and we look at it, we're like, well, this is procedural, or based on what's here, I don't know what the LFCC is thinking, we're generally not going to request any further explanation. So Mary's point is well taken, and is probably in the military, the moment to take from this. Your chance as the LFCC and the campaign as a whole to document what's going on is in that determination, that determination letter, that one letter that was sent to them for denial. Put everything in there. You were denied for this reason, give the right citation, we'll help you with what citation it's supposed to be. And because we read this and this and this, and your document said this, heck, attach the parts of the application. Now that I think about it, this is probably a good idea. This is the part in your application that we totally found issue with. Now it's part of the letter. Just put that there's enclosures at the bottom. When we get the letter and we see, well, you sent enclosures, you received enclosures with your denial letter, but you didn't include them here. Because on the flip side to your situation is, we have received appeals that don't send the original denial letter. Sorry, can't help you. You're denied. End of story. Those are the easy ones. So they go both ways. And I would say the LFCCs need to Mary's point, document everything you possibly can in that denial letter so that when it comes to us, we're going to see it. Yes, ma'am.
It's along the same lines of this person. It was 3 LFCCs that denied the same person, and the way that the appeals structure is set up, if we put in all the reasons why we didn't why it's not to the LFCC standards, it's almost like a personal attack on this person because they are literally just one person claiming to do all these grand things that they're not doing, and it's nothing in their application that says that they're not doing it. It's just from the personal experience that we've had over the years with them. If you want those in the denial letter as well, because that's really where it's coming from. It's
Okay, so the other side to this is the LFCC only has the authority, as does OPM, to gauge a charity's eligibility from the documentation that is provided in the application. There can't be any, well, I know George, and he's a great guy, but he's a schmuck. I'm not gonna, we're gonna deny his application. It's a totally different George. So it's got to be something that's in the application. I'll agree with you that that's a problem. But that is what it is. And that's why we have the review of the regulations, and that's why we change them from time to time. We find, You'll learn about new regulations tomorrow, and it'll be a matter of years, and the loopholes will be found, and then we'll end up having to revise them again. That's just the way it goes. You have something to say? Okay. I'm vamping for Mary to make her way to
And I'm hoping that some of this will be resolved in 2017 when you're doing all of your applications online, and you'll be able to make notes online, and you'll be able to do all that, and so that when we're reviewing at the appeal level, we'll be able to see your notes on the LFCC review notes.
Well, Marcus, you touched on one point, and that is that when you do your review and you make a determination that's counter to the LFCC never knows where you're coming from.
You're
and
right.
We've never gotten feedback on that, and it would really help us in future determinations if you're seeing something that we see one way, by your OPM stance, it's another way. Is it possible to get that feedback on any denial that you overturn and why it was overturned?
I'm sorry. Yeah, so yes, you can always call the regional reps. You're right, the process does not automatically send the feedback to...
Why not? It automatically
I'm not
notifies the agency.
I'm not going to disagree with the comment that says that it should. Maybe it should. It doesn't currently. And so that's just never happened. But it is public information, and we do have it, and we can share it with you if you ask for it. I don't have the authority to just make the decision telling you, oh yeah, we'll give you the last 5 years. We'll have to talk about, how we can, rectify this moving forward. But you have the right to ask about any appeal. And with everything else that's going on in the office, automatically sending it to it, not being part of the process, isn't going to happen. So I just recommend following up with your regional rep. They'll share with you the information.
You're in. All right.
Huh?
Well, no, because the issue is we had a similar agency that clearly was not a local agency, but they had a program that was. All of their paperwork was for the adjacent campaign, and they appealed to us. We denied them again. They're not in our local presence. Their
Local
program
presence. Local presence is a slightly different thing.
But it's the same situation. We denied them. They appealed. We denied them. OPM approved them. They are clearly not in our campaign area as a local presence. We never understood what rationale was applied that made them eligible. So that feedback is important for us. It
Okay.
helps in future determinations.
Understood. I would recommend getting with your regional rep about. No, I mean seriously, because I was going to clarify that too. Call Mary, and I'm sure she can explain it better than I could. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Or are you stretching? She's stretching. Anyone else? Okay, so the time on this computer says 10:30. I'm assuming that's wrong. 11:30. Okay. So long as we were talking about 2016, I wanted to give an opportunity to one of the campaigns to share their marketing strategies. 2 of them. I was told 1. There. Did I say something wrong? Oh, 2 campaigns. I thought. Okay. Yes. A couple of campaigns have marketing materials that they would like to share and explain. And so, Mandy, if you want to come forward, and I think we can run this from here.
That looks like a PowerPoint.
I didn't make any promises that I didn't have a PowerPoint. I do have it. But it's brief and it's exciting. So, okay. So, good morning. Thank you, Marcus, for allowing us this opportunity. My name is Mandy Huckins, and I work for Global Impact. And we are the PCFO for the Combined Federal Campaign of the National Capital Area, and also for the Combined Federal Campaign overseas, which is primarily where I work. And we, and a couple of other campaigns that I'll tell you about as we move through the presentation. But this year we decided to come up with a new design concept and a new theme that we're going to use in these 2 major campaigns. And we kind of are excited about it. We're thrilled to present it to you today, and we hope that you guys like it too. And we'd like to invite anyone else to join us on this adventure. So the process started with some research, and this is something that we do every year, probably something a lot of you are doing as well, and I'm probably not going to be sharing anything super new with you, but obviously everybody's really interested in how to reach some new donors, how to encourage additional participation in the campaign, and so to try to understand how we could make that happen, we held some forums, some focus groups, some AAR meetings, we dug into some best practice research, and kind of came up with some facts, looked at what was working. You'll see some quotes there. But sort of the list of facts that we came up with is that donors are increasingly more engaged around causes versus specific charities. And this is especially true in the millennial generation. Donors really care about the impact of their gift, so they want to know what's happening with these dollars that they're contributing. They want to have a lot of choice in their giving opportunities. The CFC-NCA and the CFC overall, for the most part, we've been seeing pledges and participation in a decline over the past 5 years. We know that online engagement is crucial, as is social media. And we think that the CFC in general, and especially for the CFC-NCA, that we have an excellent opportunity to acknowledge and thank the federal worker for their contribution in the philanthropic community. And we really want to take that message even broader to the whole community so that everybody understands what this campaign is about and the huge impact, the $8 billion impact that federal employees have had. So the objectives for our marketing plan is to reverse this trend of declining participation, to attract new donors, especially millennials, without alienating anyone who is already supporting us so strongly. We wanted to inject a little bit of fun into the campaign and create something a little new and different. So the design goal was to inspire people to act by reigniting the CFC with a proud, energetic, and empowered vibe. And we were going to use photographs of real federal employees to do that, and you'll see some here in the presentation today. So here's the concept. Show some love. Thank you, Vanna White. And you guys, of course, all already know Victoria Adams. And so we really feel like this is a fun idea. We're going to be encouraging people to show some love to the campaign, show some love to causes that they care about. And so here's an example of what this concept might look like in a campaign poster. Our campaign posters are still in development, so this is just kind of a sample idea. But you can kind of see some of the elements. We have the Show Some Love, we still have the CFC branding. We have, at the bottom, you might not be able to read that, it's showing up a little dark on the screen, but it says Choose Your Cause at cfcnca.org. So we're gonna be really driving people towards selecting a cause and then choosing their charity from there. It's kind of using a funkier font. We feel like it's very eye-catching, and we're actually giving credit to the talent, the real federal employee who agreed to participate in the photo shoot. So speaking of photo shoots, we've had 2 so far, and we've invited real federal employees from a variety of different agencies to participate. And the whole idea is to have a more relaxed, fun vibe to the photographs. So they're not just your typical smiling headshots. We're getting people kind of in action. We're getting them to at least act like they like the campaign and show a little bit of their personality. So we've done some various things. I mean, you'll see someone from the Library of Congress who held a stack of books in her photo session. You'll see folks, we gave them a whiteboard and let them write the cause that they care about with the hashtag Show Some Love. I think we're actually going to hashtag Show Some Love CFC. And we also have them hold up the props, like Victoria so lovingly did. So we got a variety of different photographs we can use. So some of the key elements that sort of go to support this design are sort of this fun, clean, eye-catching concept. So what we're trying to do is really kind of capture people's attention. So we want them to see this bright, bold color. We want them to stop. We want them to take a look. We want them to realize, oh, hey, this is actually a federal employee just like me. Obviously, we're highlighting the pride and, again, the contribution of real federal employees. We're trying to tie in that strong connection to charitable causes. And we do think that this is something that we can integrate throughout the entire campaign. So it's not just going to be in our marketing materials, but we're going to use it at events, we're going to use it on a full social media blast, and through our advertising. So let me show you some examples of what that might look like. So we developed some t-shirts. Oh, Victoria already put it up front. And we used these at the photo shoot. They were very well received. And we also did sort of an impromptu photo shoot at a metro station in DC. And so we were all wearing the t-shirts and standing around with clipboards and trying to get people to say that they would agree to participate. So now I know that was the hardest 2 hours of my life. I do not have a future in trying to get people to sign anything on the street. But in all cases, even when people said, no, I don't think I want to have my photograph taken, they did make a point to say, but I really like the new concept. This looks really cool, and I'm interested in that. I'm excited to see it. So that was a really good affirmation. We did get 15 people to let us take their picture, and you'll see one up there. So these more candid type photos on location are things that we would plan to use in our social media efforts. So real pictures of real people showing some love for the causes that they care about. So we are going to be making some materials available, and we've already started that process. So if you go to cfctoday.org, we already have the Show Some Love mark that you can use. We have a PowerPoint template that you can use, a document header banner template that you can use to start creating documents. So as I mentioned, we really created this for the CFC and CA, but the CFC Overseas is going to use this concept this year. We're also going to have the New York City campaign use it, and the Central Virginia campaign. And we would invite anybody who's interested to help join us in showing some love. We're happy to answer some questions. More materials will be posted as they're available, so everything will be available for you to use and to customize for your own campaigns. And we do have some hard copy printouts of the presentation today, and we'll have those over at our table kind of in the front. You're welcome to come by and take a look at those. We only printed out 10 just in case people wanted to have a look, but certainly if you would like for us to email you one, we absolutely will be happy to do that. So do we have questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Are you identifying causes? Are you like labeling children, vets, things like that? Or are you just leaving it causes?
Lana, thank you for asking that question. That's awesome. As you know, OPM already uses a taxonomic code system to identify the cause areas. And so we're going to really be tying into that. And a lot of our messaging is going to be encouraging people to use our online charity search And we can, limit that. They can choose the cause area first and then see the charity and then plug in keyword searches within that. So it kind of helps them also narrow down their search, because a lot of times we were hearing feedback from donors that there's 24,000 charities and how do I know what to do? So sometimes easier to get people to say, well, what kind of causes do you care about? And then match that up with the taxonomic codes. Now, when we're asking people to share their cause, like on the whiteboard, we let them choose whatever they wanted to say, as long as it wasn't a specific charitable organization. And it was really fun to see all these different people come in with this range of charitable causes that they care about. So we're going to also be doing some posters that have infographics, so with some data about these various causes, and then we can utilize the photographs of the people holding the whiteboard saying their cause. So that'll kind of mix it up as well. Any other questions?
I think it's a great design and great concept. I'm wondering what else you're planning to do to integrate the charities into this theme and kind of show you're showing the federal employee side pretty heavily, and are you going to do more to show the charity, the beneficiary side?
Yeah, thank you. That's also a great question. So one of the things that we do, and I know you guys do too, is we collect success stories from charities, and we get them to authorize us to remove their charity name so that we can use it in social media and on the website and in training sessions and in printed materials. And so we'll still continue to do those things. We'll also be highlighting some special cause days on our social media page. So there'll be some different times where we're talking about different causes and providing facts and dollar statements and success stories from those different cause areas. And I mean, you can really integrate this and take it in a lot of different directions. So if you're planning an event, you could do an event around a certain cause and invite charities that have identified as that cause area. You can really do a lot of fun things. I think we're also, you didn't really specifically ask this question, Bruce, but you asked it of me yesterday, so I'm just going to answer it again for the group. But specifically on social media, we're going to be encouraging people to take selfies with the props, to use the props at events. We really hope that this kind of takes off and that people sort of take this and run with it. So we're going to be having some specific days where we'll be asking them to do things like change their profile picture on Facebook to the Show Some Love logo, or for a day, or take a selfie with the Show Some Love logo somewhere. There's a vendor here who's doing a contest with props and doing a photo contest that way. So we're thinking about some things like that as well. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Andy, what can LFCC members do to show some love?
Thank you, Scott Jackson. That's an excellent question. So yes, we really encourage LFCC members to get involved with this as well. So for the LFCC of the National Capital Area, we are going to be kind of having a photo session with them as well. A little bit, less formal than some of the photos that you saw, but we'll be doing some things, asking them to show some love, getting them some shots in their t-shirts, and in action in a board meeting. And we'll be using those in social media on our website. We're also putting together a communications toolkit. So we're weaving in the Show Some Love theme with a lot of communications and asking them to, start sending these out. And those communications will be available for members of the LFCC on down to agency and department heads, down to campaign managers and coordinators and key workers. So everyone will be sharing the same messaging, and we'll be trying to make it really easy for them to just sort of pop in their few specific things that they want to customize and then be able to just send it out. So that ready to send RTS that we heard about, some people talking about, is really, I think, key to just making it easy for folks to do this. And then of course we're going to also be asking them to join and share some love publicly on their social media sites as well. Any other questions? Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for letting us present.
Thank you, Mandy and Victoria. I have to admit, so when I saw these items, I was thinking, hey, this is a cool CFC theme, and it sounds like there's so much more to it. And for what little bit I'm allowed to say, myself personally, I think it's this is an official endorsement, but I personally I think it's very clean. I think it's very nice, and I'm really interested to see where this pops up across the country and around the world. I think that's going to be really fun to watch. I can't say that the thought didn't come to my mind, but no promises. Another thing that was said kind of, tickles the nerd side of my head a little bit to Lana's question about specific causes and into EE codes and all that good stuff. Some of you may recall there was an analysis done in 2013, and just a shameless plug, I will be talking about an analysis into EE codes during the CFC by the numbers session tomorrow, where we do kind of go into what causes do CFC donors look at, and how do these codes help us, and in what ways are they not helpful, and most importantly, areas of future research and analysis, which is what it sounds like y'all are embarking on. So there's a yay CFC by the numbers tomorrow. As we move forward into the rest of the training period, the rest of today and tomorrow, I really want to thank everyone for your support here today. You could have very easily have not come knowing that we're going to talk about 2016, and you're not, and you did show up, and you did have good questions, and everybody that I've talked to today is firmly committed to 2016, and at the same time, because it does take a lot of energy to be fully committed to 2016 while at the same time be fully excited about the changes around the corner. So unless there are any other questions specific to 2016, I'll be happy to take those throughout the course of the training. I'd like to adjourn for now and expect to see everybody back here at 1 o'clock, at which time we will talk more about moving forward, and hopefully we'll be able to shed some light on the future. Thank you very much.